All right, so today I have a very special guest. OU insider for 24/7 Sports, Brandon Drumm is here, and we're going to talk about the upcoming mega weekend for the Sooners because from the outside looking in, this is an event that has always enamored me, these big-time events for these super programs like OU putting on this barbecue. Talk to us a bit about it, and how are you this evening?
Man, I'm good. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, this weekend is it's going to be something. It's going to kick off tomorrow, with people starting to roll in, or recruits starting to roll in, around 10, 11, 12 on Friday. And then after that, it's just going to be, all hell's broke loose, chaos, with people arriving Friday evening, Friday afternoon, all the way up to Saturday around noonish, 2 o'clock ish, where they'll have meetings, and then the barbecue will kick off. So it's gonna be wild, and there's gonna be a lot of talent on hand. I mean, a ton of talent. I don't particularly have the exact list, but on me right now, but it's ridiculous as far as what they have. Oklahoma has coming in. Probably the biggest grouping of talent I've seen in a recruiting event for Oklahoma since, I want to say, the 2018 spring game, where they ended up, I think it was 7 or 8 commits, maybe 9. I can't remember, but it was a lot of commits that ended up happening. Now, if you ask me how many of those guys ended up signing with the class, I think it was 3 or 4, but um, that's just because everybody that was early and everybody kind of got enamored with Oklahoma. But point being is that it's been a while since Oklahoma's had a grouping of talent like this. Obviously, the pandemic, stopped it. You know what? The Sooner Summit was pretty big too, so there was a lot of talent for that one. But this was more, multiple class, not just one class. So you're looking at 2022, 2023, and maybe even some 2024 sprinkled in there a bit. So we'll see how it plays out. I expect maybe 1, 2, 3 commits to happen this weekend. And I expect, later on, July, August, I think that's where you're really going to see the fruits of the Sooners' labor with this weekend play out. Well, you'll see more guys from that visited this weekend kind of make their move and commit to Oklahoma. But everybody's going to take their visits. June's visit month. July, August, September are going to be commit months.
Yeah, and that was, I guess, my next question that you already answered for me was about July and if it was going to be a just commit
Oh
boom.
yeah.
And do you think that this year you're seeing a difference in the way not only coaching staffs are going about getting kids acclimated when they have these visits because it's been a whole year, or is it pretty much well business as usual?
It's different because, like you said, the year that was off. So this is a correction month, and when I say correction month, it's nobody's taking visits where they could see the facilities, they could meet with the coaches and talk to them face to face. Well, now that's happening, and so everybody has this money that they saved up that they thought they were going to be able to use as they went through their process this past year, and they're just everybody's going out every weekend to another place, whether it's official, unofficial visits in a mass, you know, amount of people are going and taking visits every weekend. And it's kind of wild to cover because every day, and you kind of forget what it's like. And I know I did, because I'm like, oh my gosh, there's another visitor today on campus for Oklahoma. Oh, there's another 2 today. And this is the middle of the week, but you forget in the summer that's how it is, because we didn't have it for, 15 months, 16 months. So it kind of got old hat where nothing was happening. If they were going to do visits, it was the what was a virtual visit type deals. So it's business as usual, but it's a correction month too. So I don't think you'll see anything like this unless there's another pandemic and there's a big gap in between visits again, where you're going to see this many visits take place in 1 month. And then you're going to see the correction as far as the commits go in July, August, and September. I think it's just going to be, that is going to be, I think, where, when Steve Wilfong said this the other day on when I had him on with me for this little special we did on OU Insider, he said those months are the chaos months. Complete chaos. He expects commitments, decommitments, and then commit somewhere else type of deal. And I think you're going to see kids commit, but then I think, this is my opinion, I think you're going to see kids also take visits, officials during the season, and maybe I think you're going to see more flips than normal too, just because there's not a lot of, consistency with this class because of the pandemic. Everything's been just kind of thrown at them. Now 2023, I think everything's going to kind of level out because they're going to have that year to see the kids, to build the relationships face to face, over Zoom, over the phone, whereas it was just Zoom and over the phone for the past 16 months. So the 2022 class is going to be different than 2023 and 2024, how they go about things in a big way.
Yeah, it's actually something I talked about today, is how I haven't been surprised by some of these big time recruits decommitting, because it's almost impossible to foster relationships with an entirely new coaching staff or even the same coaching staff that an institution has had through Zoom. It's just not the same as getting that in person. Something I've been really thinking of on the coaching staff front, do you think it's more difficult for them to evaluate this year's recruiting classes or last year, given the fact that there were some kids who didn't have a senior season last year, whereas some kids didn't have a junior season? How does that play into evaluations?
The good part about this year's class is there was camps. So the staffs get the camp film. So they're going to get to see, when I call them the underwear Olympics, where so they're going to get to see the UC report camps with Under Armour. They're going to get to see the Rivals stuff. They're going to get to see the opening here in a couple of weeks. And plus they're getting camps on, their own campuses. Oklahoma just had their elite camp. They're going to have another one at the end of June on the 26th. And they're bringing kids in on the workout unofficials as well. Robert Spears Jennings from Broken Arrows, a prime example, went through the workouts with Coach Grinch, picks up an offer as a defensive back for Oklahoma, being a 6'2", 180-pound guy that can move. And so I think it's easier to scout this year than last year, because last year they weren't getting eyes on them. There weren't camps that they could go off of, because after the Future 50, it stopped. Oh, I guess a couple of Under Armour camps took place, but other than that, it stopped. So that 2021 class is completely different as far as the evaluation goes. They were having to go off of what they remembered of the kid and what the kids did in the camps in the previous year. And then obviously some got, better film during their senior year. But they weren't getting the face-to-face look of, are they a true 6'4", are they really 6'2" type of deal. So this year's much easier than past year by far, I would say.
Gotcha. And one of the last things, so I don't want to keep you too long, but one of the last things I've talked about a lot on my channel is this Alex Grinch defense, right? And it's something we've heard in the recruiting world. Multiple recruits, namely like a Gentry Williams, has said as much hype as he has into Oklahoma, and rightfully so. He is intrigued as can be to see this Alex Grinch defense in action with another year, specifically with a year of an offseason into it. So what's kind of the word around this Alex Grinch defense, and how do you think that'll translate with some of the top prospects for the Sooners?
Well, I mean, everybody saw 2019. It was better. I mean, they got, shellacked by LSU, but everybody got shellacked. Yeah, I mean, that was outside of a couple of Alabama and Oklahoma offenses in recent history. That's one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time. So, that you saw in 2019 them take this big jump from being, like, I think it was like 129th in pass defense to, I think it was like they ended up in the top 50 in pass defense in 2019. And then in 2020, they were in the top 20 or 30 in pass defense, I think, at the end of the year, or 40, something to that extent. But they keep making these big jumps because they're getting guys that fit that system, and people are starting to understand the system. They're starting to do things as far as like knowing the calls, understanding what their job is in certain calls. And And that doesn't go just with the secondary, that goes with the defensive line. And they're starting to get guys that were, you know, highly touted guys, because Perrion Winfrey, we talked about him off air. Um, he's a guy that Alabama wanted. I mean, everybody and their dog wanted. He's the number one junior college player in the country. He chose Oklahoma. Oklahoma wasn't winning those battles like that 2, 3, 4 years ago. Now they're getting the Kelvin Gilliams of the world. They're getting the Ethan Downs of the world, who obviously Ethan Downs being from Oklahoma, loving the school and the state. He was going to OU all along, but he's a difference maker. He's a guy that when you talk to sources is going to play between 125, 150 snaps this year. So and Reggie Grimes is another one. I'm trying to think of a couple of guys. Clayton Smith. They're just getting guys that are different. They're big, rangy, athletic guys that you see in the SEC. You didn't see in the Big 12. Now Oklahoma's defense, and I think the Cotton Bowl, and I know everybody wants to say, well, Florida missed a floor wide receivers. Yeah, okay. Oklahoma was missing several starters on defense too, but they replaced them with guys that they didn't have back in the day because of the recruiting that Grinch has done the last 2 years at Oklahoma. And now he's got the 2022 class that he's doing. He's got the 2021 class coming in. When you look at a guy like Jordan Mukes, the guy is a legit 6'2", 6'3", 210, 215-pound safety. I mean, I stood next to him at the elite camp, and he looks like a NFL guy. So it's different, and I think that's what you're starting to see. And that's when I talked to Gentry Williams about his visit to Oklahoma when he went on the unofficial. He said he went and saw the 7-on-7, and he goes, man, let me tell you something. Those guys are different. The offense was struggling against the defense, but they were, offense was still making plays, doing what they do because they're very talented. But he said so much so that he asked the staff that was with him, are they missing guys? And they're like, no, everybody out there has been like Theo Weiss. So, and he was like, wow. He said, they just look different. They're dudes. They're big. They're long. They're athletic. They're fast. He said they weren't recruiting guys like him and guys like DJ Graham and Woody Washington and David Uwegbu is another prime example of a guy that's just a freak athlete playing.
That's one of my favorites.
He's a stud. And I mean, you got Key Lawrence, the transfers. So they're doing a really good job, not only recruiting, but filling positions in with top transfers that fit what they're trying to do. Grinch wants long, athletic, rangy guys that can be physical. They want to play that SEC style of defense. And now you're starting to see them be able to do that. Now, is it going to be on the Alabama level? I don't know. That's saying something. Georgia, that Clemson, but are they progressing towards that? Yes, they're progressing towards that. And you see that with how they're recruiting. If they can get a guy like Amari Abor or land a Gabriel Brownlow Dindy, I mean, you're talking about two guys that grew up big OU fans, one of them in Dindy being a legacy, the other one, Gentry Williams is a legacy. He's at USC this weekend. USC, I think, leads, but I don't think it's like insurmountable that Oklahoma can't overcome it at this point. And I even told Gentry this, that, if push comes, I didn't tell him, I asked him, I said, if push comes to shove, what would he do? And he said, we'll have to see. He's not sold on one program or the other right now. So he is very much open, but Dante Williams at USC's done a great job with him. He's built a great relationship with him. And this weekend you're going to see whether Gentry really, really leans towards USC or if there's, a drawback. And I'm going to guess he's going to really, really lean towards USC, but I don't know that a decision will be imminent afterwards because he still has the LSU visit after that. And then he's got Oklahoma in July, and then he's got Oklahoma again in September. So there's a lot to go on with Gentry Williams, but USC has done a fantastic job. You can't do anything but commend the way Dante Williams has recruited him, because it's been almost, it's shocking, how well they've done in the state of Oklahoma as far as recruiting him. And then you got Chris McClellan out there as well this weekend. Florida probably leads for him. Ohio State's up there. Oklahoma's up there. They're all doing a really good job with him. I don't think he's in a hurry to make a decision either. So there's a lot of talent in state more than normal too. So I think that's helped Oklahoma. And the fact you can get lucky. And I would say Oklahoma's gotten lucky with, the Dindies and the Williams of the world being that they're legacies and being 5 stars. Now you got to land them. And that's not a guarantee because Gabriel Brown Dindy loves A&M. He loves Clemson. He loves Oklahoma. He likes Alabama. He likes Ohio State. So that one's still wide open. I'm excited to watch all these recruiting battles play out because, for somebody that covers it, seeing that Oklahoma's in on all these top 5-star guys that they normally didn't used to be in is fun for us. Now, we don't care where the kids end up, but it's fun to cover it because there's drama in it. And where there's drama, there's fan argument. There's a lot of excitement on the message board, whereas that didn't used to be the case when you're talking about defensive recruiting. Now, offensive recruiting with Oklahoma, not a problem. Defense, it's a lot more exciting to cover defensive recruiting now more than ever if you cover the University of Oklahoma. So Grinch has got that thing kind of rolling right now. This year, if they don't take another huge step, it's going to be a big disappointment with everything they have coming back because Isaiah Thomas, Jalen Redmond, Perion Winfrey, Caleb Kelly's back. You return David Uwegbu, Brian Asamoah, DJ Graham, Woody Washington. You got Billy Bowman coming in, a highly rated guy at the nickel. You have Jeremiah Cradell battling him, who was a highly rated guy at the nickel spot. You got Key Lawrence, that safety, battling with Bryson Washington, Patrick Fields, Delarian Turner-Yell. All these guys are super talented and guys that Oklahoma didn't normally land. Now they have these guys and there's depth. So like you asked that question about Grinch and I went like all these different directions, but yeah, I think that my point is that they're taking these steps each and every year, and it's because of how they're recruiting. That's why I went with the Gentry Williams and the Dindies and stuff like that. That wasn't happening back then. So that is where he's taking another step too, is on that recruiting trail, and you're starting to see things come to fruition on the field as well.
No, absolutely. I think that answer actually perfectly encapsulates it because that is kind of the air from out on the outside looking in that I've gotten, that people are very, very interested in this Grinch defense. Speaking to recruiting, one thing that I've always talked about with Oklahoma is even last year, I thought that it was almost a little misleading. You look at the top 10 classes, and though OU isn't in there, you look at the average rating per recruit, and my goodness, Oklahoma would have been in like the top 5 in that category because they didn't just have the numbers. They relied the transfer portal, but they're recruiting incredibly well. You've talked about Billy Bowman. I got to watch him play a bunch in my capacities of interning with Dave Campbell's Texas football, which was awesome. But I got to watch him twice, and I was always just blown away getting to see him play. And then one of the things you said with USC to me has been impressive in just all regards. Signing day, Rayshawn Davis looks to be going to Ohio State. USC pulls it out the hat. Corey Foreman, Damani Jackson, and then they just have JT Tuimalea there this weekend. I mean, that staff is doing just a phenomenal job there. And for me, USC coming back would be awesome, not only for the Pac. I think it's super necessary for the Pac, but for football. I mean, that would just be awesome. I think you need that Pac powerhouse to kind of cement themselves. And why not?
Top 5 program all time, USC.
Yeah. I mean, I think at least me growing up, I was in that growing up era of, I remember watching that 2005 national championship, right? Texas USC, who, even though I'm not a fan of either program, like that game is so iconic.
Oh yeah. It's amazing.
I mean, it's hard to escape that. It's unbelievable how talented this weekend is for Oklahoma. And it's awesome to see how the speed D that Grinch has kind of put into play has turned into so much legitimate hype that you hear recruits talking about it. And like you said, NFL scouts are out there talking about how this is a real system out here. And that this is something that people need to be watching. It's something that I've been saying. Before we close, is there anything you'd like to add in about this weekend?
I mean, I think it goes without saying whenever you have arguably the number 1 quarterback in the country in the 2023 class on campus, and then you have all those 5-star wide receivers in the 2023 class. that I think everybody knows Oklahoma leads from Malachi Nelson, right? So if he's there and he does some recruiting and gets a Brandon Ennis, a Jalen Hill to jump on board, Deandre Moore, you're talking about those are 3 5-star wide receivers. And I know I'm probably missing another one off the top of my head, but that would be just impressive, especially seeing what Oklahoma's also reeled in the 2022 class. They're recruiting at another level at quarterback, wide receiver. I think offensive line is going to be what a lot of people are going to be watching because there isn't a commit like outside of Hunter right now. So I think that's kind of where everybody's eyes are right now is can Oklahoma, land Cam Williams? Can they land a Jake Taylor out of Las Vegas, Bishop Gorman? Can they get one of the Pacific North guys to come around and shock and leave that region to come down to Oklahoma and commit? I think there's a lot of different storylines to watch. And then when you look at the defensive side of the ball, obviously the defensive line edge rusher position, I think, is the most intriguing because you had Derek Brown in earlier this week. You had Gabe Dindy in earlier this week. Now you have Kenyatta Jackson coming in. You have Amari Abor, and you've got Derek Moore. So it's just a really different level of recruiting that Oklahoma fans are like, okay, that's great now that they're on campus. We've seen this happen a couple of times. Now, is Oklahoma going to end up landing these guys, or at least one or two? I think if Oklahoma lands one or two, you'll see Oklahoma fans pulling a Will Ferrell streaking through the street because they haven't had guys like that land outside of maybe a Kelvin Gilliam announced for Oklahoma. So I think there's so many good storylines because the list is so long and just talent rich that I think if you're not following the ChampU BBQ this weekend and you're a big recruit, Nick, you're doing yourself a complete injustice because it's gonna be wild to see who commits, who gets close to committing, but then maybe commits later. All that stuff. It's just gonna be fun to follow either way.
Yeah, I absolutely can't wait. That's about all I have, man. I cannot thank you enough for hopping on here, talking about the ChampU BBQ with me. It was absolutely awesome. Thank you so much. I hope to have you on again here soon.
Yeah.
Talking about it afterwards. But that'll just about do it. See ya.